Bonjour, je suis not manly. Ici le voyage d'espace je ne sais quoi. And bonjour, welcome to Saint Boniface, Manitoba, where I am recording this. Anyway, we finally constructed our warp drive up in low Kerbal orbit, and we're loading up resources there, including our uranium to run our nuclear reactor, and our liquid fuel and oxidizer. We got some xenon gas in there as well. There we go. So we load all that up and then we can release the warp drive. We're not going to deploy it just yet. We're going to keep it nearby so that we can dock other things to it in just a bit. And there we go. So yeah, we do some basic checks and make sure that the reactor on here is working. Okay. And there we go. Now we got some internal propulsion to push this thing around if we need. Now we have enough rocket parts on that station there that we can build a small structural part. This part is going to allow us to join 4 additional modules to this craft. Let's see, where is this? Come on, where do I got it? Okay, so I built this thing in the vehicle assembly building, I set it up as a sub-assembly, and there we go. We do have just enough rocket parts to build this adapter. This is a 4-to-1 adapter that lets me hook up 4 additional 2.5 meter modules. And it doesn't take very long, it takes only about a couple hours to finish of real time here. There we go. Finalized build. It's just 4 fuel tanks and some docking ports. Before we release it though, we're going to dock the warp drive to it, and then we're going to turn this thing around, then we'll release it. Okay, there we go. Now, the station's road is wobbling a little bit there. It takes a little bit. Oh, yeah. Bounce. Bounce. Come on. Come on there, game. Get this thing going. I turned SAS off on the warp drive so that it can rely on the station to grab it, but it's not grabbing it very well, so I try to stabilize it just a little bit. Come on, grab that thing. Back and forth, back and forth. It took a little while, but it did eventually grab the thing. There we go. And now we don't need that container of rocket parts, we can separate out the warp drive. Now with that adapter in the way, its chemical engines are useless to us, but that's okay. We're not going to let it drift off very far. We can finally dump off the rocket parts shuttle and we can deorbit this giant bottle. There we go, leaving our empties in space. No, we're going to send this down into Kerbin's atmosphere. Just on the beginning of a gorgeous Kerbin sunrise. And there we go. So while that thing is taking off, we're going to dock the warp drive and its adapter module back to the station so we can keep it all together in one piece. And there we go. So this thing will stay in low orbit until we can launch some additional components. First part, we are sending up a couple of large relay sats. These are a pair of JX2 antennas mounted onto Procraft. We will attach those to 2 of the empty modules on the back of the warp drive. We're going to want this for communication that far out. Hamek and Ilu is a very, very large distance away from Kerbin. We do have some of these JX2 antennas out just between the orbits of Duna and the asteroid belt already. Plus we've got some above Joule and Lindor, so we shouldn't have a problem with signal once we get these relay sats out to Hamek. Originally, I was thinking of leaving 1 at Hamek, 1 at Ilu, but I don't know. I might have a load balancing problem as I do that. We'll find out when we get out to Hamek what we're going to do with these things. There we go. Some assembly required. And I pretty much leave the game's magnets to do their thing. That is how lazy I have gotten. Oop, a little bouncy there. There we go. There's one. Let's get the other one hooked up there. I wanted to show all this off just so that I was not just cheating and sending parts up into orbit with a couple of cheat codes. Nope, we're doing this properly. Here's the 3rd module. This is the Kuiper Belt rover. We're going to be using this to explore the surfaces of Hamek, Celeste, Tam, and Ilu. This turned out to be a pretty good design in my JNSQ do-over mission where I attempted to send this out to Moho. The only difference is Moho needed an extra service module for most of the descent, but this thing can manage just fine. I do have a 10-meter heat shield on here because it does make descending to Elu that much simpler. And I tried to deorbit that booster, but I guess those Separatrons got interfered with. Oh well. I'll send something up to deorbit that piece of space junk later on. Here comes the rover. Almost. There we go. Now you might notice we're going to have a bit of a load balancing problem once we get our final piece up here. This is the Kuiper Belt HAB unit. It has a command module and a HAB module and some relay antennas of its own. I also have a rovemate on there for Kerbal. That got deorbited properly there. There we go. A little bit of docking later. And we're set up. Now this thing is only missing old Boom Boom to get this thing out into high Kerbal orbit. We're going to send up our crew into the HAB and into the command module. We brought Valentina Kerman up there, and we're going to send the rest of the ladies back down in our single stage to orbit spaceplane. After a good couple days up in space, we're bringing the ladies back. Now don't worry, that does have an Octo 2 probe core aboard, so we'll have no problem bringing this thing back. I say we don't have a problem bringing it back, but hey, this is JNSQ Kerbal, and any spaceplane re-entry is going to be challenging, including this one right here. Now here's the problem. I started from such a high orbit, 110 kilometers, so that when I went to deorbit this thing, I missed the Space Center by quite a bit. But that was the least of my concern at the moment here. We're trying to get these ladies back safe. Look at that. We are finally starting to slow down some. Temperature gauges across the whole craft. Even my makeshift docking port is having some heating issues, but it's mostly protected by that cargo bay. It's not bad, but here we are, we're already above the continent where the Space Center is, and we are still well above Mach 8. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we're gonna miss the Space Center. There it is. Bye-bye, Gene. We'll have to see you later. Oh my goodness. Anyway. We do manage to deorbit this thing safely, though unfortunately we are all the way out past Welcome Back Island, and even out within range of the island airfield, so I thought, hey, why not just land there? During my explorations, I did leave a flag up there, so I do have a target marker to fly to. But it was still very, very challenging just to get out there, never mind land. You saw I had some dynamic pressure issues there for a little while. But I do get close enough eventually, and I do take a quick save here so that I can try this landing approach. I'll be honest, this took a few tries. There's no point in you seeing me crash this thing 5 times. I do get it down on the 6th try right here. There we go. Jenny Ann and Julie are in full command of this craft, and after a few tries and a few reloads, they do get this thing touched down safely. Oh boy, here we go. Flare, 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 flare. Oh, ow, a little bit of a bounce there. Come on, let's not run out of runway. And there we go. Good job, Jenny Ann and Julie, for getting this thing back safe. And good job, Roberta, for surviving. Anyway, with the ladies back safe on the ground, we pay our attention to the warp ship. And Doug here is strutting everything up to make sure this thing doesn't wobble into pieces. Because when we use old Boom Boom, we are going to be shaking this thing apart a lot. We have plenty of EVA struts to put this thing back together, with another Kerbal sunrise in the background. Hey there, Doug. So yeah, we'll leave this thing docked to the station until we can bring old Boom Boom there up to meet them. Not bad. It's gonna take about 7 hours for old Boom Boom to catch up, but that's okay. That's okay. 7 hours versus a 10-year trip up to Hamek. You know what? I'll take the 7 hours. Anyway, here's our rendezvous burn, not a problem. It's a good thing I got my Core i9 now, because I've got so many parts in play right now that my old computer would just be crying right now. It's like, no, 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 don't do this to me. Fortunately, this machine can handle this just fine. There we go. Line up our warp drive with old Boom Boom. We're going to use old Boom Boom here with the Medusa nuclear pulse to provide that extra delta V that we're going to need to correct our courses after we warp out to these places. Even with only a 1/3 load of nuclear bombs, this thing still has delta V for weeks. And there we go. And finally, we can put our construction station to bed until we need it for next time when we get ready to go to Nara. I'm doing some load balancing here. You can see that thrust torque there. I'm trying to get that value as close to 0 as I can, so that when Valentina engages the Medusa drive, the craft is not going to be fighting her. I do get very, very, very close. First I balance out the Hab and the rover, but I don't get quite to 0, so I go to one of the other tanks where the relays are, and I do get to 0.01, and we should be able to manage that. And with a little more strutting up, this craft will be solid and ready to take out to Hamek. And here we go. We need to get the craft up above 800 kilometers so that the warp drive can safely engage. But we do a little bit extra and we go in the general direction of Hamek. There we go. The throttle is fighting Valentina a little bit, the controls are fighting her a little bit, but she's able to keep it under control. That load balancing problem was fixed. There we go. A previous version of that had pieces just flopping everywhere, and well, I ended up doing that design with the 4 modules trailing behind because it was a lot more stable. And now 800 kilometers up, we can engage the warp drive, and now we can engage this craft. Off we go! No, Valentina, you are not Captain Picard. Engage! And off we go. This thing's holding together remarkably well, considering it was cobbled together with spit and baling wire and docking ports. Anyway, we'll see these guys out at Hamek in the next episode. Until then, I'm not manly. Fly safe.